young filmmakers and a lot of people who dream to make movies decided, okay, bugger that, we're going to do it as well. And so there's now a small wave of people just doing what they can with what they've got, despite like the lack of finance or their context in the industry. So we feel that something good we already achieved with a little film, and hopefully it will just continue and grow. Because Russia is such a diverse country with so much stuff happening, I'm surprised the genre doesn't exist there, because it's there, like, present every day.
Que todavía no tienen distribuidor oficial en Rusia, pero a raíz de esta película ha empezado una pequeña ola de muchas películas zombies que está haciendo la gente pues la manera que pueda, con el dinero que tengan y sin apoyo oficial, y espera que su esperanza es que siga creciendo, y porque hay tantísimas posibilidades en Rusia, pues que sigue creciendo.
So I don't know what else to say. I have to say that my sister wrote a tour guide about Madrid, and so just the fact that we got invited to the Madrid Film Festival, we already felt like, woohoo! Family connection. No, she wrote a tour guide, like like Lonely Planet tour guides.
Okay.
Well, she did the same in Russia about Madrid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so every Russian person who travels to Madrid got my sister's book in her hand.
Su hermana es la autora de un libro, un guía de viajes de Madrid, y cada persona en Rusia que va a Madrid compra este guía escrito por su hermana.
Yeah.
Entonces ya tiene un vínculo fuerte con.
And she is the head of the cultural department at the Cervantes Institute in Moscow. So, well, we like Spain.
Trabaja en el Instituto Cervantes en Moscú.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone else wants to know something or ask me something or whatever, or how does it go, or we run out of time, and give me a hint here.
¿Alguna pregunta?
Dentro de la industria del cine, ¿qué tipo de presupuesto maneja la película? ¿Un presupuesto alto, bajo?
Sí.
So within the medium of the film industry, what kind of budget did your film have? Was it very high? Was it very low?
It was strange. Probably was. It's really hard to say because we don't have. Our film industry is really weird. So on one hand, it was a really small budget because there's some mainstream production with like $20 million budgets and $40 million government-financed patriotic war films. And compared to that, we spent about $500,000 in cash, and a lot of work was done for free. Like, we didn't get paid anything, our actors didn't get paid much, and so altogether it was probably closer to $1 million. Like, we had friends in Australia helping us do like titles and music and sound and stuff like that.
Dice que es muy difícil decirlo porque en Rusia la industria es muy extraña, porque hay películas de 20 millones y 40 millones que son producidas por el gobierno sobre la guerra o cosas así, y entonces realmente parece poco. Ellos gastaron unos 500.000 euros, pero había mucha gente que contribuía o donaba su trabajo. Pues tenían amigos pues en todo el mundo ayudando con los títulos, con todas las cosas, entonces realmente igual era más cerca de $1 millón.
But certainly for someone to privately invest in their own film, it probably is a fairly high budget because no one would spend their own money on a zombie movie. People would buy an apartment or buy a car, and so compared to that, it probably was a high budget.
Que como película autofinanciada, pues fue un presupuesto bastante alto, porque realmente quién va a gastar su propio dinero en una película de zombies.
And I mean, that was all our money, so we don't have an apartment now.
No tienen piso, porque eso fue todo el dinero que tenían, pero por lo menos tienen una película zombie.
Sí, ha comentado sobre el casting que hicieron a gente de la calle, o al menos eso me ha parecido entender, que habían hecho una especie de... Me gustaría que profundizase un poquito más en la experiencia esa que nos hablase un poquito más de la experiencia esa que fue sacar a la gente de la calle para ponerla a actuar.
Wants to know a little bit more about how you said that you had a lot of people just off the street acting. How did you do that? What was the experience like than getting regular people to be in your film?
It was a really interesting experience. Now, the entire idea with our film was that we needed people to react. We wanted to make it a really simple and concept, the movie. Zombies appear, people run away. That was partially done out of protest because of all the deep and meaningful Russian films. We felt, needed to change, something light needed to come out. So we came up with the idea that we wanted people, we looked for characters rather than actors. So we looked for a character that would fit well to what we imagined, and we would just put them in the circumstances where we forced them to run metal stairs, and we didn't tell them that the stairs would explode. And so they were fairly scared, and so that looked natural in a way.
Que querían hacer algo mucho más ligero para contrastar con las películas típicos rusos así muy profundos. Entonces buscaban más que gente, pues buscaban personajes particulares, ¿no? Y quería medir un poco la reacción natural de la gente. Entonces igual cogía gente, decía, tenéis que subir estas escaleras de metal sin decirles que las escaleras iban a explotar. Entonces así captaban las reacciones naturales que tenía la gente a la experiencia.
And that's another thing, because we did use professional pilot technicians and stuff like that, but it's with them it's always a problem because they don't really know what's going to happen. So they're going to tell you, oh, it's going to be a small fireball, and at the end windows fly off 100 meters away because we'll put a bit too much explosion into it. And so for all of us, because we never had any experience with that was a fairly exciting process.
Que sí que utilizaron pirotécnicos profesionales, pero claro, ellos dirían, eso va a ser una explosión súper pequeñita y sería uno masivo. Ay, perdón, es que hemos puesto un poco demasiado carga. Entonces pues fue muy emocionante porque nunca sabían lo que iba a pasar realmente.
But with actors, you asked another thing that happened. For example, we have one character who was meant to play this good guy, and we found an actor who's a TV presenter who wanted to be in our movie. We agreed that he would do it almost for free, but he was a bit too young, and we wanted him to look older. So we asked him not to shave and to kind of to grow stubble.
Yeah.
And the day before shooting, he shaved bald, shaved his beard, and covered his body in tattoos, and said, "Look, I look like hardcore now. That's what you need." No. So the day before shooting, we had to change one of the actors and just find a person on the street, and we just went "Oh, look, you look good. You want to be in the movie?" Okay. And so that's the guy who runs with the machine guns in our film. So we found him the day before the shoot. He never acted before, and the funny thing with him that he's a tiny guy. He's got a big head, a tiny. But the second you point the camera on him, he looks like Bruce Willis back then. So we just went yeah, all right, that works for us.
Que una de las cosas que pasaron es que habían encontrado un presentador de televisión para encarnar el papel de un tío simpático, ¿no? Bueno, uno de los héroes, ¿no? Y entonces era un tío muy joven, le pedían que no afeitara durante unos días para parecer mayor. Entonces el día antes de empezar el rodaje, pues llega el tío, había afeitado, rapado y había cubierto en tatuajes. Y era como, ahora soy súper macho y doy miedo, y era totalmente equivocado para el papel. Entonces encontraron un tío por la calle que nunca había actuado en su vida, pero que tenía el look que buscaban, y al final él hizo el papel. Y dice que es un tío muy pequeñito, con una cabeza muy grande, que parece como muy raro, pero cuando sale en la película parece como Bruce Willis. Tiene una expresión muy fuerte.
Y otra pregunta, perdón, no quiero usar, pero es que me doy cuenta, por ejemplo, de que ahora empieza a haber producciones de género fantástico en Rusia. Esto también está, por ejemplo, autores como Dmitry Glukovsky, que el autor de Metro. Hay un renacer, si es que alguna vez se fue, del fantástico ruso, de lo que es las experiencias un poco experimental con la fantasía en Rusia.
¿Y si hay un renacer del fantástico en Rusia, perdón?
Sí, si hay un renacer del fantástico en Rusia, de las experiencias de la imaginación, o es que realmente nunca se fue.
Okay. How many actors renaissance, like a rebirth of fantastic film genre in Russia, or is it that there never was in the first place and it's just starting now?
I mean, in Soviet time, the fantastic genre was great. I mean, until like the 70s, they went hand in hand with Hollywood, and you could like, you know, compare. You could go like Solaris to Kubrick. You know, everything was fine. There was no problems with genre films during Soviet time. But now, I personally hope that we'll see a slight renaissance and that something will come. Because we spoke to a really large distributor, actually, 20th Century Fox in Russia, and we went, look guys, how about like Russian films? Like, oh no, in Russia we only need comedies and cartoons. So Russian films, only comedies and cartoons. Anything else Russian we don't distribute. So at the moment, that's how large distributors react to Russian fantasy films. Hopefully, I hope that they'll actually, they'll see that people want genre and that look and works, and other people will start investing into it, because with genre films and with fantasy films, you need to invest money into it to make it look good, because only then you can like. I put another point, but you can do that.
Que hasta los años, hasta los años 70 sí que iba un poco a la vez que Hollywood, ese tipo de películas, y lo que él espera ahora es que haya un pequeño renacimiento, porque ellos, por ejemplo, hablaron con Fox, con 20th Century Fox, y decían que no, que en Rusia solo quieren comedias o películas animadas, y nada más. Entonces él pues tiene la esperanza de que van a ver que sí que hay un mercado para esto, porque realmente falta dinero para producir ese tipo de película para que quede bien los efectos.
And just I'll finish it up in a second. And another thing that I want to say, that you have to understand how the audience reacts. You've got, in Russia, in the cinema, there aren't that many cinemas, but in general, you've got 70% of the market is US Hollywood films. And from the US Hollywood films, you get like the 50 best US films per year. That's the only films that you get to see in Russia, the 50 best. So obviously, if you take a Russian fantasy film, you know, it immediately gets compared to like Prometheus or Oblivion. And so obviously they go like, oh, no, that's good, that sucks. So, you know, that's why probably no one attempts to do a fantasy film, because it's really hard to compare. But the audience, I think, starts to desire it, and there are small theater chains who are keen on actually on getting those films to distribute, to show. We have a few offers to like just locally show to like small cities, and they're like, oh, we want it because our audience really wants genre films. They're sick of it. They really like it. They already start making films by themselves and just throw it around the small cities because people want local content. And so I hope it will actually change soon.
La reacción del público es muy fundamental para esto, porque 70% de las películas que hay en Rusia vienen de Hollywood, y a lo largo de un año, cuando no hay muchos cines, a lo largo del año igual ponen los 50 mejores películas de Hollywood y ya está. Entonces, para comparar una película fantástica Rusia, pues están comparando el público con Prometeo o con esas películas grandes, entonces no lo ven tan favorecido, pero dice que también hay cines pequeñas, locales, que están empezando a pedir ese tipo de película. De hecho han pedido la suya porque el público ya está interesado.
This is our art director over there. Go ahead. So she did all the guts and gore and all that.
Encargada de entrañas y otras cosas.
Yo tengo una pregunta, es que no sé nada de ruso, entonces quería saber el título Meteletsa, qué significa, que nos hablases un poco de lo que significa el título, porque supongo que no tendrá nada que ver con el sobrenombre que tiene.
What's the meaning of the title?
Glad you asked. The idea, Meteletsa, it's in Russian the translation for winter storm, like a snowstorm, blizzard. We just felt like, we're making a Russian zombie film, so, want to introduce a new word. Let's have, Matryoshka, Sputnik, communism, and, Meteletsa.
En ruso significa una tormenta de nieve. Entonces, dicen, bueno, estamos haciendo una película de zombies, vamos a presentar o meter una película nueva, digo una palabra nueva.
Los zombies que están tan de moda durante tantos años, parece ser que la tendencia es hacer comedias zombies, ¿no? Por lo menos en producciones de cine siempre se tira más a la Hong Kong. Si tal y como dices, en Rusia hay más facilidades de producción en comedias o cosas de humor, ¿cómo es que elegiste un tono más serio y fuiste contracorriente cuando a lo mejor puedes haber tenido más facilidades de producción en Rusia haciendo una comedia?
I mean, what's since zombie movies are so fashion right now, but they started to shift into becoming comedies. Is that in a market like Russia where comedies are popular, why would you choose to make a comedy film that's more serious?
It's actually another good question. The thing is that we wrote the script in 2007. So we wrote it way before the large zombie wave hit everyone and the Walking Dead started. And way before, like, we kind of predicted a lot of events in our film that happened in Russia that, you know, in 2007 no one would see them that way. And the thing is, and that's another reason, and we wanted to make a slightly like serious film, even because everyone wants a comedy. Because everyone wants a comedy, a cartoon. We said, enough of that. Wanted to kind of just make a zombie movie, like a proper zombie movie, like everyone else, like, you know, thousands of other films that are being made around the world, but for some reason none in Russia. But we had friends, well, now they're not friends anymore. But they helped us doing the first trailer. They did some CGI for us, and then they asked us for help, and they said, "Look, we want to make as well genre films about aliens and blah blah blah." And we helped them with everything we could, like, because we don't have much, but we did everything we could. We gave them all the people who we shot with, lots of advice, some pointers on all the mistakes that we did, and at the end they shot zombie comedy. So they went like, oh, you know, zombie film seems to be really popular. Those guys did all the hard work. They kind of, you know, made everyone aware that Russian zombie films would exist, and so we're just gonna make it a comedy because Russians need a comedy. I personally think this is still
Escribieron el guión en 2007, antes de que realmente estuviera tan metido en la locura esta por los zombies. Y quería hacerlo serio justamente por eso, porque no querían producir una comedia, querían decir basta ya que podemos ver otras cosas. Y tenían unos amigos que ayudaron con algunas cosas con el primer trailer, y los amigos decían, no, que queremos empezar a hacer películas de género, de fantasía, sobre extraterrestres y no sé qué, y entonces les ayudaron, les contaron todos los errores, todas las cosas que habían hecho, cómo lo habían conseguido y todo. Bueno, de hecho son amigos, ex amigos, y los ex amigos ahora han hecho una comedia zombie.
So you'll see quite a few new Russian zombie films soon.
Van a estrenar muchas películas zombies rusas en los próximos, seguramente.
Yo tengo una pregunta para la persona encargada de los efectos y demás. Nosotros no hemos visto la película todavía, pero sí que nos gustaría saber, para hacernos una idea, qué escena es la que más complicaciones les ha dado. La pueden contestar tanto el director, desde el punto de vista del director, como ella, desde el punto de vista de maquillaje y demás.
Okay. Well, this is a question for both of you. They haven't seen the film yet, but they want to know which scene was the most complicated in terms of makeup, special effects, art direction. So they can have it in their minds when they go to see the film.
Какая была самая сложная сцена в фильме, с точки зрения производства, художественного, мейкапа, художественной части?
Ну, безусловно, самое тяжелое это массовое. Самое страшное это когда горели люди. И вообще, когда у нас было много взрывов людей,
Obviously, in terms of art direction and makeup style, the most complicated the mass scenes, because again, with our low budget, we decided that let's go full on. So we had like 200 extras on set who all needed to be like covered in blood and stuff like that. And but the most like complicated, or the most horrific scenes where we had to set people on fire, because it's pretty much it's scary, because we don't have control over it. So you have like normal people who before they never acted in a movie, and they never actually been a zombie before in their life, and now suddenly someone covered them in blood and is about to set them on fire, or they walk, and next to them there are people like full blown, full burns and explosions happening simultaneously. And we only had one take of it, so that was the most complicated thing, because I hate one takes. It's like, and at one point our actors even kind of slightly lost it. They had like a bit of a nervous problem. Well, that's when I told you that the bridge had exploded, that our pilot technician forgot to tell them about. That was actually good. Yeah, and so after that they were kind of all shaken, so we had to kind of calm them all down, and they were like, it's all good, you did well, everything is fine, everything works well.
Pues lo más complicado siempre son las escenas donde hay muchísima gente, pues igual había 200 actores, y claro, con poco dinero tenían que cubrirlos todos en sangre, y luego lo más difícil era lo de encender a la gente y prender fuego a la gente. Porque tienes una persona que no ha actuado en su vida, que de repente es zombie, cubierto en sangre, y ahora le vas a prender fuego. Pues es obvio que es un poco difícil. Y todo esto con solo una toma. Y dice que en algún momento algunos de los actores perdieron un poco los nervios. Esto pasó después de que los pirotécnicos se había olvidado decirles que el puente iba a explotar, pero esto salió bien.
And another thing that I have to point out, so anyone going to actually see the film, that we shot it pretty much as the movie goes along. So the first day, like the first minutes of the film, was the first days of the shoot. We only had 22 shooting days, and so the most complicated for us were obviously the first like 3 to 4 days, because we just didn't have a clue how to shoot. And so still look at the film and we go like, oh my god, the first 15 minutes. Oh. So that was the most complicated part in the realization later, that you actually have to learn how to shoot stuff.
Rodar una película de forma cronológica, pues los primeros días de rodaje eran los primeros minutos de la película, solo tenían 22 días de rodaje. Entonces, en los primeros 3 o 4 días todavía no sabían muy bien lo que estaban haciendo. Él ve ahora los primeros 15 minutos de la película y está horrorizado porque ve todas las cosas que había aprendido de camino.
And one more thing that I wanted to point out, that we had like 200 extras at some point, but since it's the first zombie film ever, all those extras, they never took part in anything where they kind of were center stage. And so that was quite exciting, and especially like in a country that's fairly religious, we wanted to have our zombies, we wanted to have like old lady zombies. And so there was like 80-year-old babushkas, and we were like, you understand what we're gonna do with you? She goes, yes, we're gonna cover you in blood, and you're gonna have to eat that person over there. And so she would, yes, and she would, how do you call that? Well, would go like that and then go eat someone. And, but she was a bit slow, so our zombies are really slow zombies, but she was super slow, so she didn't get a chance to eat someone.
Bueno, esto como fue la primera película zombie, ninguno de los 200 extras habían hecho de zombie antes. Y como es un país muy religioso, pues ellos querían poner zombies de mayores y babushkas, en la típica folclórica rusa vestida de zombie. Y entonces estaban explicando a una señora de 80 y tantos años, pero entiende que lo que vamos a hacer, te vamos a cubrir en sangre y tienes que comer a esa persona. Sí, entonces la señora iría a comer a la persona muy lento, pero...
And another funny episode was that we would ask zombies to go like, look, an explosion is going to happen now, so you're all going to die. And they would be really like anxious, they wouldn't want to die. And I didn't understand what happened, like, how come? Just fall over. And they didn't want to do it. And then later they told us that they're worried that if they die, we're not going to bring them back, like we're not going to ask them to be an extra again. And so at that point we told everyone that no, in our movie everyone can die many, many times. And so at that point all the extras just started like jumping, falling, and we just had kind of rotate them. So.
Por ejemplo, dirían los extras, mira, va a haber una explosión y tenéis que morir todos. Pero resulta que la gente no quería morir y no lo entendían. Entonces al final hablaron con ellos y dijeron, ¿por qué no queréis morir? ¿Qué pasa aquí? Y explicaban que una vez muertos tenían miedo que no iban a poder salir otra vez en la película. Entonces decían, no, en nuestra película todos pueden morir múltiples veces. Y ya a partir de ahí todo el mundo empezaba a tirarse por ahí, y tenían que rotar un poco. Pero...
And you could actually see, we would shoot like 5 days, 6 days, and then 7 have a day off. And you would walk in a city and you would see just people in suits and like in ties, and they would still be covered in blood because it would wash off. And so they would have like pink stains all over the place.
En la ciudad, porque ellos rodaron 6 días y luego había un día libre. Entonces en la ciudad verías gente en trajes, corbata y tal, yendo a trabajar, pero todavía tenían maquillaje aquí de zombie porque no se quitaba bien. Y se veía por toda la ciudad.
So it was a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to keep doing. And our next film is going to be Diesel Punk.
Muy divertido. Van a seguir haciéndolo y la próxima película es Diesel Punk. ¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Que nos cuente algo de esa próxima película, algún tema, argumento, género o algo similar.
Yeah, well, genre like diesel punk or light diesel punk. We want to set it in an alternative Russia. It's really hard to explain what the movie is about, but generally it's how every action has its consequences. That every evil can find a greater evil to conquer that, and so that's like kind of the story. But the setting will be a Russia that. After a nuclear war with the US, after the Cuban crisis, so we kind of want to go the alternative historic route, that the Cuban crisis didn't actually resolve peacefully, but actually, well, they all nuked the shit out of each other, so kind of to create this alternative diesel punk environment with Russia being kind of Russia, but after a different type of Soviet Union collapse. So,
el lugar es una Rusia alternativa después de la crisis nuclear con Estados Unidos, y es una historia muy compleja, pero la idea es un poco esta Rusia alternativa y donde cada acción tiene una consecuencia mayor, cada maldad tiene una maldad mayor.
That's a short film that we're doing, and as a large film, like a feature film, the next feature film hopefully is going to be about zombie polar bears.
El último era Diesel Punk, que es un corto que están haciendo, pero el próximo largometraje que están haciendo va a ser sobre osos polares zombie.
Well, they're not quite zombie polar bear, but they just sound so cool, so we just have to say that.
No es exactamente lo que son, pero como eso suena muy guay también.
And obviously, if theoretically this film, like the Meteletsa, it's part of a trilogy that we developed, where, like, in this film, the third film should be this huge steampunk blockbuster with like new ice age and lizards and monsters and all that, and it should have been epic. But obviously when we came up with that epic film, we realized that because we're first-time filmmakers, like no one else will give us any money, nor we will be able to actually pull it off. So we kind of created this kind of development. We started with a small, tiny zombie film that should, in the second thing, develop to a larger world where we would explain with like what the snow does, and that the snow is just the tip of the iceberg, and that you know, it brings like different type of mutations and blah blah blah. And then the third movie will be this huge, you know, 1,000 years in the future ice age where technocrats fight wizards. Yes. That's obviously if you're not going to go bankrupt.
Esta película es parte de una trilogía, pero se dieron cuenta obviamente que no pueden hacer los tres películas de golpe como es su primera película. Entonces la idea es que la segunda película sería un poquito más grande y que sería pues un mundo un poco más grande para explicar qué significa la nieve, qué es lo que hace, qué tipo de mutaciones conlleva. Y luego el siguiente, que sería como un gran peliculón de muchísimo presupuesto, super steampunk, super blockbuster, sería miles de años en el futuro, un poco la guerra entre tecnócratas y
Wizards.
Wizards?
Wizards.
Magos.
Well, so yeah, ambitious plans. We'll see how we go. I mean, we'll see how we go. It just started. You'll see more of us.
Están comenzando ahora, pero tienen planes muy grandes, así que ya les veréis más adelante también.
Thank you all. I hope some of you will enjoy the film.